Good morning once again, my brothers and sisters at Living Hope Community Church, Iglesia Esperanza Viviente, and throughout the world. Welcome once again to another Living Hope Today study. And today we find ourselves in 1 Kings chapter 17, and this chapter just takes a turn. All of a sudden, we're just introduced to a guy. We've been going through this series of kings, and these kings have been described as either they did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Of course, there was only one of those guys. He was in the southern kingdom. His name was Asa. And the rest of these kings that have been brought up as we go through these chapters before chapter 17, they all have this one tag connected to them, and that is they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. The most evil is a guy named Ahab. He's in the northern kingdom. He rules from a place called Samaria. Okay, well, chapter 17 starts just like this. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab. So wait a minute, we don't know where Elijah came from. We don't have any background except that he came from this town called Tishbe. And now he's talking to the king of Israel, the northern kingdom. Well, how does he get an audience with him? And is he called of God? Or what's going on with Elijah? Well, we know because we know the story that yes, he's a prophet of God, but the text doesn't really point that out. Now, just to bring it a little closer to home here's, let's see, this would be like the area of Jerusalem, Bethlehem, the Mount of Olives. Just to show it to you on the map, there's the Dead Sea just a little bit to the east of that area. If you go north all the way off the map, you'll get to the Sea of Galilee. But if you want to know where Elijah's from, he's from this place right here, Tishbe is what it's called. So he's up to the north and he's up to the east of the Jordan River in Gilead. That's where he's from. Okay, back to the text. Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Galilee said to Ahab, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve. So that now we know at least Elijah is a servant of God. And listen to what he says. There will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word. That's quite a statement. The Lord has shown Elijah that he's going to control the moisture in the area through the words of Elijah, that he's going to give him the power to establish rain or keep rain from falling. All right, verse 2, then the word of the Lord came to Elijah. So now we see God speaking directly to the prophet. And what does he say? He says, leave here, turn eastward and hide. Hide. Wow. In Kerith Ravine, east of the Jordan. So Ahab is such a bad person that God's first instruction after telling Elijah to deliver the news to Ahab about the potential drought, now the next thing God tells him is you better hide. You better get over here in the Kerith Ravine east of the Jordan. Okay, I'm going to take care of you. Watch this. You will drink from the brook. Okay, water, check. And I have ordered the ravens to feed you there. Really? God controls nature. The birds, the ravens, are going to bring Elijah dinner. Supernatural provision for the one who speaks for God as he has to hide because of the fierceness of evil, specifically evil through King Ahab. So another thing that helps Elijah stand out is this line right here. So he did what the Lord told him. How refreshing is that? We haven't seen that kind of a line for a while. Here's a prophet obeying God as God instructs. He went to the Kerith Ravine east of the Jordan, and he stayed there. Again, we're not told that Elijah knew for how long, but he obeys the Lord. All right. Well, the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. So the Lord's giving him provision, and morning and evening, the birds are showing up. Here's breakfast, here's dinner. He's being fed miraculously through the creatures that God commands, which is all of nature. All right? So, sometime later, we're not told how long that was. But it might have been a long time. But because there's no rain, guess what happens? The brook dried up. Because there had been no rain in the land. God knows how to bring a drought. He knows how to bring a famine. He knows how to move people around and get people's attention. Ahab might think he's God himself, but he can't make it rain. Only God can do that. And Elijah is going to be used in Ahab's life to teach him who really is God. It's not Ahab. Okay, the brook dries up. There's no rain. Okay, then what happens? Then the word of the Lord came to him. So, after some time later, however long that was, God speaks to Elijah again. Go at once to Zarephath of Sidon and stay there. I've commanded a widow in that place to supply you with food. So notice, okay, Elijah, it's time to move again. This time I'm sending you not to the ravens to feed you as you hide, but I want you to go to a specific place. I'll show you that place in a minute. I've commanded a widow. Who has the least power in ancient culture? I dare say it's the widow, maybe the orphan. These people have nobody to care for them, and they have very little provision, and they have very little chance of gaining employment. There's no Social Security office down the street where the government's going to give them money. No. But God says, look, I'm going to take this weakest link in the social chain, and I'm going to use that woman to feed you now. Oh, wow. What does Elijah do? Well, first, let's look at the map. Here he is down here. Well, he's going to this place, Zarephath, up here in the north. Notice that it's north of the Sea of Galilee. It's out of Israel. All right? It's way up north on the coast of the Mediterranean. He's come from this area where he lives, and just by chance, as you look at this map, I want to point out one more thing, because this will come into play as time passes. But there's Mount Carmel, where that little red arrow is. We'll see that more lately, or in a while. Okay, so verse 9, the word of the Lord comes to him, verse 9, go at once to Zarephath of Sidon. I've commanded a widow to give you food. All right, so now he's going to be taken care of by the weakest social link in the chain. So he went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink? Now you would think that this widow has some supernatural understanding that God is going to use her to supply the physical needs of the prophet Elijah, and that she needs to obey and serve him. But look at what's happening in her life. She first decides to agree with the prophet's request and get him something to drink. So as she was going to get it, he called, hey, bring me, please, a piece of bread. Okay, I'm hungry too. So water and bread, that's what I want. All right? Now listen to this. As surely as the Lord your God lives, she replied, I don't have any bread. Oh, wait. The Lord has commanded you to supply the needs of the prophet. You not only don't know the prophet's coming, you seem surprised, but you don't have any resource to feed the prophet. How can that be? God, why? What are you doing? Shouldn't she have a stockpile? The pantry should be full. Here comes the prophet here. What would you like for breakfast? No. The widow says, I don't have anything. I only have a handful of flour in a jar, and I have a little bit of oil in a jug. Now listen to this line. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die. In other words, we're at the end of our resource. We have no other way to survive. So we're going to go have our last meal because we're hungry. This is it. We're going to use the last little bit of our resource and die. How does this sound like somebody the Lord has chosen to supply for the prophet? But the prophet Elijah is looking through the lens of God's power and God's purpose. What does he say to her? He said to her, don't be afraid. A key statement throughout Scripture. You don't have to be afraid of these circumstances, even though they look impossible. Go home and do as you have said, but first, in other words, go home and make your bread. Even though you think it's going to be the death of you, go ahead, go make it. But first, make a small cake of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me. And then make something for yourself and your son. Oh, okay, so bring me, even though you have a little resource, bring me some resource first. This woman is challenged to give before she receives. To give, in her mind, I'm sure it's almost all, if not all, that she has. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord gives rain on the land. What does that mean? God is saying through the prophet Elijah that he's going to supernaturally provide more flour and more oil until rain comes. You don't have to worry. Don't be afraid. I am going to provide for the prophet, and because you are serving me by helping the prophet, Miss Widow, I'm going to provide for you too. The Lord is moving to accomplish his purpose. So she went away and did as Elijah told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. The jar of flour was not used up. The jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. A miraculous supply, provision given by the one who cares for those who serve him. Miraculous provision that was completely unexpected and unexplainable except for the power of God. Verse 17, sometime later, talk about a hard circumstance. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse, and he finally stopped breathing. Well, when you stop breathing, what does that mean? It means you're dead, right? He died. She said to Elijah, what do you have against me, man of God? In other words, you're here. You didn't do anything to help me with this son. You have power from God. You just let him die. Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son? So the son's not breathing. The son has died, and the widow is now very, very helpless. She might have had a hope if her son grew up of achieving some sort of income or provision through the son's life. His obligation would have been to take care of his mother. Now she's lost him. She's lost everything. She has no hope. And she's just asking the prophet a realistic question. Look, I know I'm a sinner and I don't deserve anything from God. You're here. Did you come to make all this happen so that my misery would be exponentially greater than it was? Elijah says, give me your son. He took him from her arms. He carried him to the upper room where he was staying, and he laid him on his bed. And here's the key line. Then he cried out to the Lord. Who has power to give life? Only God. He cried out to the Lord, O Lord, my God, have you brought tragedy also upon this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die? He asked a similar question to God that the widow has asked of him. Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times, and he cried to the Lord. There it is again. God, I'm begging you, O Lord, my God, let this boy's life return to him. 3 times. So time number 1, Nothing happens. Time number 2, nothing happens. Do we give up? Do we say God's mean, he's bad, we're not going to do any more? No, we keep going. The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. 3rd time. Now the boy is revived. He's alive again. Elijah picked up the child, carried him down from the room into the house, gave him to his mother, and said, "Look, your son is alive." And then the woman said to Elijah, "Now I know you are a man of God, and the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." So in chapter 17, we see God's provision for Elijah, both by protecting him from Ahab and feeding him with ravens, and a widow who obviously now understands that she's entertaining a prophet of God, a man who speaks for God, speaks the truth, and God listens to, in the sense that through the prayer of Elijah, her son lives. He provides for the ones that serve him. We are a living testimony to that. And I pray you serve him well today, church. God bless you.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do you know who he is? He's the image of the invisible God, and he's the brightness of his glory, the first, the last, the future, the past,